G'day, hi, and welcome. Okay, what makes a good gigging guitar? This is kind of going to try to wrap this one up very quickly. The other video I just kind of ranted and ranted and ranted. Yeah, okay, so gigging guitar versus, get off my butt here, versus a, what makes a good gigging guitar? Well, any good guitar could be a gigging guitar. It could be a cheap guitar, it could be an expensive guitar, be whatever. Now, to give you an idea, sorry for the mess here, but that guitar right there, that Ibanez AEL-10, it's got quite a few gigs on it, and it's like a $400 guitar. And that guitar is an excellent gigging guitar. It's done a lot. These guitars, I've yet to see a gig. This here I've jammed with it. It's a jam night guitar. So jam night guitar, gigging guitar. What's going to make a good one? Well, here's the thing. The guitar it's got to be a guitar that you actually don't mind abusing and not necessarily losing, but wearing out. You will wear out a jam night guitar very quickly. Maybe not quickly, but within a couple of years, maybe even within a year. If depending on what you're playing, where you're playing. What happens when you play live is usually, okay, you get there, the room temperature is fine, then the place starts filling up full of people. You got a lot of humidity, people are dancing. You've got lights that are really hot and usually very close to your instruments, within 6 feet of your instrument type of thing, which puts a lot of heat on it. And then at the end of the night, everybody clears out of the room, everything cools down really quick. Wood being porous, it tends to warp things, and then within XYZ amount of time, especially with all your sweat and everything on the guitars, you ruin the finish. You tend to, the necks sometimes will warp, depending on the guitars. There's some guitars that the necks are really, really pretty solid on there, but a good gigging guitar has a tough finish on it. For example, this is nitrocellulose lacquer, and I know some people say, oh, it doesn't make any difference in the sound. They just did that because it's cheap, and other people say, no, the polyethylene completely kills the sound. Well, my experience is this. When I removed polyethylene finish off my G400 when I had it, and did a nitrocellulose lacquer, there was a huge difference in tonal quality. Polyethylene, it's basically plastic paint is what it is. So it will kill the sound, dull the sound. It muffles the sound a bit. But if you're playing with a lot of effects or whatever, it doesn't mean it won't sound good. It just won't sound as good as it could. Whereas a guitar like this, it breathes a little more. And if you can't hear the sound difference, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But if you're going to be knowing that you're going to be doing a lot of gigging, the polyethylene guitar is going to stand up a lot longer. It's the finish isn't going to flake on you. The finish is because the problem with nitrocellulose lacquer and softer finishes like that is it's a bit porous, and once the moisture gets underneath, then you start to see paint chipping off on the corners and stuff like that. So the climate, satin finish guitars. I'll tell you the story of this guy. He was a host for a jam night at the Baseline Station in Ottawa. And he had a T3 Taylor, which is like a $3,500 guitar, acoustic guitar. And it had the satin finish. And I took one look at it. I was like, oh, dude, that's your jam night guitar? He goes, oh, yeah. He says, I love this thing. It's awesome. I said, I know it's an awesome guitar, but I said, you should get a cheaper guitar for that. That thing's... And within 2 weeks, I could already start to see the split down, where it was starting to... taking on the moisture and stuff like that, just from the wear and tear of being under the hot lights, and then it's humid and stuff like that. And he had already started getting warps in the neck after about 3 weeks. Now, mind you, this guy played 5 nights a week, so he was really, really, really. He had a guitar that really, really, it was so expensive. It's like, that's a guitar you record with and you play like special shows with or whatever. And I'll show you my jam night guitar that owes me absolutely nothing. And that's this guitar here. This has you guessed it, polyethylene finish. And a lot of people say that, Reg, it's not a great sounding guitar. I should actually probably, maybe one day I'll actually clean this thing. But it's a pretty guitar. Okay. And this guitar, okay, it's trust me, I dropped guitar polish on it and the electronics don't work anymore. The dust you see on there is from this, I don't know why, but my pick hits that. I never scratched that. I don't have a pick guard on. I never scratched that. But this guitar has probably paid for itself at least once. It's a $400 guitar, right? Now I'm going to show you something. Now, when I set it up, yeah, look at that action. Can you do that on your acoustic? But you can't. Why? Because this thing is set up. I set it up perfectly. But the thing is this guitar, you could go out in -40, okay, run into +50 degree in a bar, and it will still stay in tune. Why? Because it's polyethylene finish on it. It's just not sensitive whatsoever to temperature changes. That makes a great gigging guitar. The drawback doesn't sound as good as a nice satin finished full, exploration of the sound of the actual tone of the wood. That's what you're giving up. So the electrics are a little bit less finicky, but they can be finicky. I played a Les Paul years ago. It wasn't mine, it was somebody else's. And this thing, what a sound. It was solid mahogany, but it was a satin finished top, and the neck was basically a satin finish. And yeah, if there was a big temperature difference in the night, you had to tune up a few times. It was just, it was a little bit sensitive, but what a great sounding guitar. The sustain on it was just unbelievable. It was a 69 soap bar pickup with a Les Paul Studio with the soap bar pickups. Very, very, very sought after guitar today. I still know where that guitar is. Yeah, and he also had a 78 Telecaster with the F hole in it. Like the original, not the reissue, but the original. And that thing too was a little bit finicky with the hollow body. My other hollow body that I had, it was finicky as well for staying in tune if it was really humid or whatever the temperature change. The plywood body guitar I had, even though it had polyethylene paint on it, the neck on it was finicky. It was finicky. It would definitely go out. That guitar would go out of tune. I remember one of the first gigs I did was on the back of a flatbed truck, and it was really, really hot out, and the guitar was black with a blue burst, my TCM Explorer, and that thing, the sun was detuning it as I was playing. My fingerboard, I had a very dark fingerboard on it, and it was rosewood, but it was really, really dark. It was almost thought it was ebony, but it was actually a rosewood. It was probably painted rosewood, but yeah, that guitar was detuning as I was playing. So like, you do that, no problem. Now, mind you, my cousin, his band, his guitar player has this Dean Flying V. I love the sound of this thing. It's just so cool. And he said he's had no problems with that thing whatsoever. They're playing out on the back of a flatbed. He says, no, it doesn't detune. He leaves it up against the amp, the sun beating down on it, and that guitar just seems to hold up on him. And, it just happens to be the guitar that just does it all. It's a neck-through body as well, and I'm like, it's like the neck isn't warped on that thing yet, It's like, wow. But when I bought this thing, okay, this is about a $400 guitar. Plus tax, I don't know what it was, but I bought it with the concept of jam nights and bars, and a little bit of the show factor of the Flying V. Trust me, when people see a Flying V on stage, not everybody, some people buy guitars with strange ideas of, oh, if we bring that on stage, it's going to offend people. It's like, oh, they're going to think we're going to be playing death metal or something like that. So they'll buy a Strat body, right? I know it sounds ridiculous, but there is that kind of mentality. So they won't take something like this on stage. But when you do, just wear sunglasses, because the camera flashes are going to blind you. If you ever want to be famous, buy yourself a double neck. Now, I had the G1275 double neck, Epiphone double neck. That thing was a showstopper and a half on stage, and it was really top reliable for staying in tune. regardless of what kind of, because it did have the polyethylene paint or whatever, but that was not only a great, it just, I mean, the thing was the size of a dresser, right? So it just had natural sustain and everything like that. So the polyethylene paint didn't really kill any sound off that. I only imagine what that guitar would have sounded like with, no finish on it. The sustain would blow your mind. And I'd play with that on stage with that thing a couple of times, and yeah, it was definitely a showstopper. But it was a good reliable. The neck was thick on it. The heel was thick on it. I mean, this thing wasn't going to warp. But it was a 14-pound guitar to play. That's the only thing. So as a jam night guitar, fine. As a gigging guitar, it was a little on the heavy side. Guitar weights don't really bug me that much. I mean, this thing, I don't know what it weighs. That thing, I don't know what it weighs. They're not heavy. I used to have a Les Paul that was like 9 pounds. It was a boat anchor. And it was fine. Like, I mean, you get used to it. But if you have to play 3 hours in the night, a slightly lighter guitar is a little easier on the shoulder, around the neck. Especially if you're playing a lot. That it does kind of, you can kind of get a really comfortable guitar strap. That's something I should probably do a separate video on. But a good gigging guitar is something that could take the hammering of the changing conditions all the time. Such as temperature, the lights, on a small stage you don't need frickin' 500 watt lights on there. I don't know why people do that. Oh well, it looks cool. Whatever. Yeah, you're melting. Your face is getting melted off. It's just these spotlights. Those spotlights do so much damage to your guitar. There's nothing you can really do about it. It won't happen the first gig or the second gig, but over time, you know what I mean? And most of my guitars usually held out for about 2 to 3 years. Now, that said, even if you're not gigging, most guitars are going to show wear after about 3 years anyway. Most guitars are going to need a setup usually every couple of years anyway, depending on how much you play, maybe once a year, depending on your climate, all that stuff. But most guitars, if you keep them well set up, you don't have to adjust them as much, which is nice. So this is a gigging guitar. This is like, okay, if I'm getting paid really well, I'll bring it out once in a while. I'll bring it out to the jam night once in a while, or the like jamming with the guys here. Not a bar, but just jamming with the guys or whatever. I'll bring this out once in a while, but this comes out more because what's going to have beer spilt? Which would I rather have beer spilt on? That body sweat. That, you know what I mean? Like, yes, when you're playing in your own bedroom or whatever, and you're playing your guitars, yeah, they get messed up and dirty and stuff like that, but they're always in the same climate. It doesn't tend to affect them as much. But when you move them around, bouncing around in the vehicle, stuff like that, that's, so that's where these, some of these guitars have an advantage, and the lower cost, so that when you do have to replace them, other things that happen is pickups short out when you sweat on them too much. The salt grunge gets in there and it just shorts out the copper wiring. You'll get that pretty quick. I don't know, I'm one of those guys that I tend to just pour when I'm on stage, but I think it's because of the lights and everything like that. And plus I move around quite a bit when I am on stage. I try to put on a show, right? Because you're an entertainer first and a musician second when you're on stage. When you're recording, you're a musician first. When you're writing songs, you're a musician first. But every other time, you're an entertainer first. So, yeah. But that's just some tips when you're picking a guitar. If it's just jam nights, go with the guitar you don't mind losing. Because again, my Hammer Diablo, when it got the warp in the neck, I explained that in the other video. That was too bad because that was one hell of a guitar. I'm missing it now. I really am. And I haven't found a guitar that quite plays like it. Like it was really, it's a real sought after guitar. If you ever get a chance to play one of those mid-90s Hammer Diablos, not the Slammer, but the Diablo, the US made Diablos, you'll be quite impressed of how good they sound, just the way they were with the alder body and stuff like that. They were really sharp looking guitars. I had the emerald green one. But yeah, this is the type of guitar that I'm going to take to the jam night. If you want real reliability, always go with a fixed bridge. It takes so many headaches away. But if you want to razzle dazzle, it's nice to have the that as a, the razzle dazzle guitar. It's really cool to do, but I love whammy bars are fun. They're fun. They just they are what they are. They're a little more work. They're a little more maintenance. That's the other thing too is adjustments and stuff like that. When you play a jam night, one thing to keep in mind is when you have, and what turned me off of Floyd Rose's, not the brand, but the tremolo, locking tremolo systems, was breaking strings live. I rarely break strings, but when I do, it always seems to be live. The nice thing is that you can always just roll down the string and just replant it back into the saddle, but it's a pain in the butt. So fixed bridges, always quick to tune up, whatever. And some places you play, it's like your guitar just will not stay in. It's just so humid in there, your guitar just won't stay in tune. It's easier just to have be able to touch up on an open system like that so that all reliability wise, you're usually going to fare out better with a fixed bridge than you will with a tremolo system. That said, I am kind of hooked on these Flying V's. I really like these Jackson Flying V's. I love the Gibson Flying V's as well. I do want another one, but I want a better quality Jackson Flying V. But I'm going to get the fixed bridge one. This one is just, for fun and whatever. But this is a good jam night guitar where, okay, you go to jam night guitar. Hey, dude, I didn't bring my guitar. Could I play yours? Yeah, sure, go knock yourself out. Just don't break it, and it's the guy that's going to break. As soon as he gets up there, he's going to do one, he's going to be up there 5 minutes, 2 minutes, or 20 seconds or whatever. He's going to pop a string off. Okay, well, whatever. I don't care. Strings are 8 months old anyway. Literally, they probably. Well, I play these when I'm not gigging. These strings will stay on there until they rot off the guitar. So I know that's bad, but it's just for fun, right? So anyway, that's just my take. Things that I have found. Yes, the pots, they'll get all crudted in there. Everything you sweat on just gets it's so gunked up, and you can't clean it enough. That type of thing. So the pickups will short out on you. The neck's going to warp on you. You're going to get scratches on it. It's going to warp. The paint's going to get tarnished. It's bouncing around the back of a vehicle. That's what happens to a jam night guitar or a gigging guitar. So just so you're aware of it. So any guitar you really, really, truly love, maybe leave that one at home. Maybe take it out on a special occasion. Like maybe 1 in every 10 gigs you play the SG, and as a treat, or a place that okay, it won't hurt to play there at all. But some bars are pretty nasty. Like you walk on there, you haven't even finished the first song, and you're just dripping with sweat, and you're not even moving. It's just because it's so freaking stagnant in there. And plus you got all this equipment behind you that's just roasting heat. You got tubes, you got whatever, So that's my little tip. I didn't mean to go on this long, but when you're picking a gigging guitar, keep in mind, polyethylene paint, yes, you'll lose a bit of tonal quality. Some people can't tell the difference anyway. And I'll be honest with you, most people will not be able to tell the difference between the tonal quality of a cheap guitar like that one or, an expensive guitar like that one. They can't tell. They're more concerned about how you play it. If you play well, that's half your battle. That's 90% of your battle. If you play crappy, it won't matter what guitar you have. If you don't play well, people are simply not going to listen. So, good jam night guitar. Keep it cheap. You can probably pick up one of these used for like $200. At $200, you're not gonna cry if something, when it's all worn out on you. But the more expensive guitars, you will kind of, and it's not like you can just find these things anywhere. They don't make this model anymore. So it's like, okay, that's delegated to rare stuff. You don't want to take that stuff out as much as possible. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. So be sure to hit that like button. If you got guitars that you thought were really fantastic as live playing guitars, put them down below, because there's so many makes and models. You got so much choice. It's obscene the amount of choice we have for guitars to pick from, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but there's just some guitars that are just naturally make I like flat, thin, tapered necks, but those big, thick baseball back neck guitars like Stratocasters and Telecasters, I mean, you could pretty much dunk those guitars in water and they'll still stay in tune. You know what I mean? They could take the humidity, they could take the hot, they could take the cold. They're great for that. Yeah, but if you find guitars that are really good, yeah, put your favorite gigging guitar down below. We'd all love to hear it. So make sure, again, you hit that like button and subscribe. And be true to yourself, be true to others. Always, always do the right thing. Have yourselves a great day and rock on.